I will be talking about the value and impact of capacity building within the human-centered design space. So yes, I'll just start by I'll talk through a project that I took part of with a team of my Think Place colleagues. And this is Ymca Kenya and Zambia. And I'm going to use this project to illustrate how capacity building is valuable for us within the design space. So Ymca Kenya is a project that will happen in Kenya and Zambia across 2 countries. And the background of this project was that from previous studies, there had been findings around like gender dynamics. And what this means is that we find that gender dynamics between men and women sort of like influences the impact of sexual reproductive health. And an example I can give that was mentioned is that you find men actually are dominant within the community or societies. And what that does is that it means they have an influencing power and on the relations between men and women. And the outcome of that is that you find this influences uptake of sexual reproductive health and services. A good example I can talk about is aggression. You find that in African context, men are expected to be strong and aggressive and not to show emotion. But then that also results in gender-based violence, where you find men in an attempt to show aggression will end up, let's say, beating women, beating their wives. And so you see how those two relate and what the impact can be. So this study set out to try to understand what are some of these, gender nuances and what effect this actually have on like gender outcomes and SRH as a result. And how this eventually translates into influencing decisions around sexual reproductive health rights. So next we're going to look at how did we do this and why? So we worked alongside our client, Ymca, just to engage a group of researchers in the process of capacity building. So from the beginning, our client was very intentional about the element of capacity building because this is something they were intentional as an output, that we want to see this prototypes or concepts that we come up with not die, but sort of like evolve and become impactful and scale up eventually. So the first thing we did, we engaged with a group of research assistants across Kenya and Zambia. And we took them through like a capacity building workshop. I'll reference Zambia for this case, where we had a 2 weeks capacity building workshop. And what we did in this workshop, there was like a 2-phased approach. So the first phase, I call it watch and learn, where we trained them, we took them through HCD and what it is, and took them through examples. And we, as the researchers, conducted interviews out in the field while they observed and learned from us. And then this was transitioned out. It was like a transitionary phase where in the second week, our research assistants participated in the actual sessions. And I call it doing by feedback, in the sense where they were running sessions while we observed and gave them feedback. So in the second week, which is like the transitionary phase, our research assistants were doing, and we were, adding value, telling them, okay, here, next time you can try, ask this question this way, do this. So it was kind of an easy, smooth transition that was comfortable enough for our research assistants. And it's good to mention that our research assistants did not previously have a human-centered design background. So they had done qualitative studies before. So this was quite a new approach for them. So what we did after the 2-step workshops, we had remote check-ins, which we would do this virtually back here in Nairobi. And we would just check with them weekly. How is the process going? How are you building concepts? What kind of feedback do you require from us? So it was very, we were still together in as much as at this point we were in Nairobi and they were in the field. So what happened, we feel like the teams were empowered to eventually proceed with testing. They managed to come up with concepts, ideas within an ideation workshop, and they independently tested some of those concepts. So this is just a picture of the sessions and some of the tools that we used. So I'm going to talk through some of the prototypes. So this is a prototype in Kenya that's called the online talk show. I know we had Akini in one of the sessions talk about the impact and the power of radio to reach people and as a tool for research as well. So this prototype was meant to engage young people and have them actually have conversations around SRH topics in a way that's fun, that's engaging, and they can actually relate to. So this was a very good prototype that was in Naivasha, and the level of engagement was amazing. There were conversations on Instagram, so we did get quite some engagement on this prototype. So for Zambia, we had more of like event-based prototypes, and this was because I remember Zambia, you find it's a very, young people are very active, they're into sports. At least out of 2 people, every 1 person is into a sport or likes outdoor activities. So they came up with prototypes that were event-based, and they did test some of these prototypes within Zambia. Oh. Okay. Yes. Okay, good. So within Zambia, yes. So within Zambia, these are the prototypes that they actually tested. And they managed to carry this forward and test them really well, regardless of us not being there in person. So Akinyi is right next to me. I just wanted her to mention something around IPAS, because this was also another project that used a similar approach.
Thank you, Sarah. So when we're thinking about capacity building, what we really wanted to do with IPAS was to see how working with a really lean budget, we could just help the clients to understand the design methodology, how to undertake massive research, how to test prototypes in the community in situ, and then how to actually identify learnings that are practical and impactful. So similar to Sarah's YMCA, what we did was work very closely with the client just to be able to give them an opportunity to observe how we were collecting data, and then what we were validating as an insight versus not an insight. And to date, they've been able to carry the process and move the prototypes from low fidelity to mid fidelity, which I think is the ultimate value that you can deliver when you're working within a lean budget type of context.
Okay, thank you, Akinyi. So I'll just summarize my into main takeaways, pretty much what's the learning. So the first thing is skills transfer. It was amazing to see researchers move from being scared of the word HCD to eventually embracing it and really owning it, and being passionate about the ideas that we came up with and going out to the communities to test them and fully owning them. So that's really amazing. The second thing is, I'd say, project ownership from our clients. In our case, YMCA was happy with the work that was produced. They loved the concepts that came up, and they're currently going to scale those ideas and test them further and turn them into actual prototypes and test them further and just improve them into projects that will work within the YMCA spaces long term. The third thing I would say is achieving impact, even within limited resources. Just as Akinyi mentioned in the case of IPAS, it was just finding the right balance as well between how do you achieve high impact, at the same time working with available budgets as well. So the fourth thing I would say, there's a growing demand clearly for capacity building. So we've gotten to a space where the industry and people in the development space have seen the value of HCD, and they're asking for that, and they're asking, how do we capacity build our teams, our staff, our communities eventually to be able to own up and really, own up problems, own up the solutions, and just scale them for impact pretty much. So my last point would be, for me personally as a designer, I think it's the feeling of fulfillment. I feel so happy every time my research assistants are out there, they're reaching out, they're letting me know that they're taking up courses on HCD, they want to learn more. So that feeling of fulfillment for me, I think, is the most important part for all of us as designers, because we are all doing great work out there and we really thrive on that.